I firmly believe that success can be distilled down to the execution of habits. My name is Brandon. I spent the last 9 years in sales selling everything from real estate to pharmaceuticals. I'm sharing the tips, the tricks, the strategies, and in the weeds tactics that you can use too to develop your sales career. Today, I want to share a book that I read a long time ago, but I think the lessons inside of have aged well. The book is called Million Dollar Habits by Brian Tracy. Brian is a business consultant. I would argue a gray hair at this point. He's in the same class as like Tony Robbins. They are some of the OGs in the personal development space. And I'm going to break down a few of these. Some of them might be a little dated, but I'll add the contextual spin of 2025 on them. The first habit that I want to share, Brian recommends committing to lifelong learning. So what he says is key habit of thinking and acting practiced by top people is growth orientation. Growth orientation requires that you develop the habit of continuous learning, the habit of continuous personal and professional development. The second habit for continuous learning, learn from experts. He recommends attending seminars and courses and recommends not waiting for your company to provide you with the training. Basically, what he's saying is take your learning into your own hands. The third recommendation for continuous learning is attend university on wheels. So this chapter is actually kind of funny because he talks about using cassette tapes and putting cassette tapes in your car, and that's how you'll get your university on wheels. Today we have things like YouTube and podcast. So while his tactics did not necessarily age well, the overall lesson has. Similarly with the one before where he says attend all the courses and seminars that you possibly can. A lot of those are going to happen online these days. The key concept here, though, is that you need to commit to learning and doing that on a regular basis instead of just waiting for the information to be given to you. When I got into sales, one of the ways I was able to quickly become a subject matter expert in real estate was by listening to podcasts. Yes, at the time, the brokerage that I worked for, they had training. Yes, they had meetings. They had all of that coursework. But by taking it into my own hands and adding that additional learning, I was able to distill that information more quickly and get up to pace faster. The second habit that I want to focus on from the book is this habit of thinking like an entrepreneur. Brian says an entrepreneur is like a guerrilla fighter in the competitive business market. They have several qualities that enable him or her to start and grow a successful business against the competition. He then goes on to explain that you need to develop the habit of moving quickly on opportunities and problems. And in addition, you need to train the habit of flexibility. Now, Brian is talking about thinking like an entrepreneur in the sense of starting a business, or if you're a small business owner. The way that I interpret it, though, in sales is every sales rep is responsible for their own small piece of the business inside of the business. So whether you're strictly hunting new business or you're more in an account executive role where you have a territory of defined clients that are ordering on a regular basis, either of those can be interpreted as a business inside of the business. And the ability to think like an entrepreneur means your ability to understand that you have to make business decisions for that business or your territory. So if you have ongoing clients that you want to service at the highest level, you can't be giving away discounts or discounting your product every time you get your product is too expensive objection. That's not going to bode well for your territory, and it's not going to bode well for the business. And if your territory is not doing well and the business isn't doing well, guess who's first on the chopping block? Conversely, if you're in a role where you're a hunter, you're hunting new business, you don't have any of that recurring business. Thinking like an entrepreneur means you understand that hitting your quota and driving new business is what it's going to take to get that job done, and not simply coming in and punching the clock. It's not a 9-to-5 job if what you're measured on is new business attainment. So thinking like an entrepreneur, going the extra distance, doing what's right for the business, treating your territory like it is a business inside of that business. The next habit that Brian brings up is practicing the Pareto Principle. Now, to all my salespeople out there who have a little bit of experience, if you've got a year or more experience under your belt, this is probably something that you're familiar with, so stick with me. If you are looking for your first sales role, though, or this is new to you, The Pareto Principle is something that comes up in sales all the time. So here's what Brian has to say. This rule, first stated by Wilfred Pareto, 1896. Yeah, he's old. Says that 20% of what you do will account for 80% of the value of everything you do in that area. So what that means is 20% of your prospects will turn into 80% of your customers. I'm going to add a little bit of my own context on there. 20% of your customers or leads will turn into 80% of your business in terms of dollars. If you are in sales and you have a territory with recurring revenue, the top 20% of your customers, it is overwhelmingly likely make up 80% or more of that territory's production. When you need to make decisions about what customers you're prioritizing, how you're prioritizing your time, you need to make sure that you are prioritizing that top 20%. Now, if you're in a hunter role where your business is, or your territory is all based on new business acquisition, 20% of your prospects will turn into 80% of your production. Not all leads are created equal. So in my field, we sell pharmaceuticals, we sell specialty pharmaceuticals. When I'm looking through my lead list, if I see a hospital that has keywords like emergency, referral, urgent care, any of those keywords that make me think ding, 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 they're going to use the medications that I sell, those are the leads that I'm prioritizing because those have the potential to make me the most amount of money. Now, contextualize it for your own business, but that's the principle. Another habit that I want to highlight here, make others feel important. What Brian says is that when we make others feel important, it satisfies the deepest subconscious cravings of human nature. Everything you do or fail to do can be judged against this standard. Does it make others feel more or less important? In sales, though, your success will be partly determined by your ability to make other people feel important. A characteristic that I recognize in young salespeople, new salespeople, is we have a tendency to think that we are the center of the world. And really, to take it back to a previous lesson, if you're practicing the Pareto principle, you should only be speaking 20% of the time. Your prospect should be speaking 80% of the time, or your client. And when you ask the right questions, when you let them talk, when you make them the center of attention, that's when we feel important. We all like talking about ourselves. But remember, the habit that is going to lead to long-term success in sales is your ability to make your client or your prospect feel important. The last habit that I want to highlight is tell the truth. And the reason I want to highlight this one is because as salespeople, we sometimes have a tendency to get a bad rap. Sometimes that is deserved. But here's what Brian has to say. He says, the most important asset you have is your reputation, and your level of integrity determines the quality of your reputation. Sales is a pretty closed ecosystem. Every sales rep is selling inside of an industry. And as a result of that, your name will get around. And what you want is for your name to get around in a positive way. You want clients to come away from every interaction, whether it be a one-call close situation or an ongoing relationship. You want them to feel like you are a high integrity person. Referrals are a key component of every salesperson's business. Whether you're a hunter whose quota is solely based on new business, or you have a recurring revenue model, like a territory that you manage, referrals are the easiest deals to close. You have been vouched for by someone who already knows, likes, and trusts you to someone else who knows, likes, and trusts that person. And when you act with low integrity, when you lie, when you cheat, even when you exaggerate the truth a little bit, or maybe downplay bad shortcomings, all of that matters. All of it plays into your reputation, and it will impact you negatively over the long run if you do not act with high integrity. And so basically, this is just my way. All my salespeople out there, anyone who wants to be a salesperson, any new person getting into the industry, just act with integrity, tell the truth, even when it's hard. I had a situation when I first got into real estate. I was working with a client who they were looking for a townhouse, but really wanted a unit with air conditioning. And over the phone, I had told them that it had AC. I thought it did. We get there to do the walkthrough. And during the walkthrough, I noticed that actually it didn't. I checked the HVAC unit in the closet, and then I went outside to do a double check to see if there was a compressor out there, and there was not. So at that point, I was very sure that this property did not have AC. Now, nowhere in writing had I told my client that it had AC. If you wanted to get down to the nitty gritty, it would have been very hard to prove that I said that. And at the end of the day, due diligence, inspections really is on the client to do. But at the same point in time, that is the antithesis of acting with integrity. And so what I did was I told them, I said, hey, when we were doing the walkthrough, I know I told you that it had AC. I thought I did, but I checked the HVAC unit and then I went outside to check for a compressor and it didn't. So I am confident that this unit does not have AC. In that moment, I potentially blew up my own deal, but it was the right thing to do. And they liked that unit so much that they bought it anyway. And they bought it anyway, knowing that it didn't have AC. And I closed that deal knowing that I did the right thing for my customer. So do the right thing.